Hello, friends and family. How's everybody doing today? I am Herman with H&D Abroad, and this is Man Monday. So welcome to all of those who are joining us today. If you are joining us live, we ask you to comment in the chat section. Please let me know that you're here. We have this little bit of conversation this evening. And if you're watching from the future, please make sure that you go into the comment section and put hashtag replay. We love for those who watch us later to comment and let us know that you were here. We try to always comment on anything that is given to us as comments in the comment section. For those who may not know me, who may not know about our channel, again, my name is Herman, and this is H&D Abroad. And on our channel, my wife Dee and I, we share our journey to move abroad out of the United States and see the world, to live in a place eventually that feels like home, in the process to increase our personal health and well-being, as well as increase generational wealth for ourselves and our family, and to build a community, which is you. We do that through research and this great community that we have building with you. It has been wonderful building this community because you all are a support system to us, and we have learned a lot about this process in our engagement with you. So, as always, if this feels like a good fit for you, sounds interesting to you, actually first to like this channel, like this video, just because you're here today, hit the subscribe button and become a part of our community, and hit the notification bell so that in the future, you will be a part of our ongoing video section. We go live every Saturday at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. And I go live on Monday nights for Man Monday, and Dee goes live on Thursdays with her Women's Health Spotlight. All right, so good to see the people here in the chat today. To the teacher, glad you're here. And again, if you are here, please let me know that you are here so that I know that you're a part of this conversation. In reviewing the thought process for this evening's thought conversation, I previewed some videos by the church announcements. I previewed some videos by two different groups of gentlemen. One was the Breakfast Club of Power 105.1. They talked about Black Men Heal, sitting with hurt, conquering trauma, healing communities, and more. They did a panel on that. And the other video was by Express Yourself Black Man. And it was a group of men talking about Black men speaking on Black love and friendships with Mel, David, and Dimetri. These conversations dove into the diverse realm of what we've been trying to build here in this conversation on Man Monday, and that's the community of men. I want to start off by sharing a personal experience, a personal history, and how I look at that in relationship to now. Several years ago, I was a part of a community of men who got together almost intentionally by one man and accidentally by the rest of us. A gentleman joined our church group at the time, and he shared with us that he was considering starting a man-focused men's group, and wanted to get our feedback on the validity, the possibility of that being a growing opportunity as men in this setting. As you can probably imagine, it started off kind of as a hesitant conversation. It was a large group of men in the room, various ages from probably late teens, early 20s, up to gentlemen in their 70s and 80s. And in this conversation, there was a lot of talk on what would this community look like. A blessing to the moment was men began to, over time, as the conversation warmed and grew, to discuss their personal needs for interaction with other men. What was probably supposed to be a 30-minute, maybe an hour conversation, we spent several hours. It grew into a conversation of several hours of very intimate conversation. There were a lot of emotions that unexpectedly revealed themselves in this setting. And at the end of that conversation, we unanimously agreed to build and support this men's group at our church. The gentleman who led that group, his approach to this group was, we've done the talking, now we need to get into the doing. And so he spent a considerable amount of time finding projects for us to do where men were working together. We started off simply by finding projects that various members needed and going and meeting those needs. Elder care, lawn care, or fixing some broken things, or washing cars, or some minor paint jobs. We really got involved working together, and it kept us active. We systematically and regularly met to do these projects. Over time, some of the younger members in the group created social events for us to be involved in. So we went to a couple of ball games together. We had a couple of field day projects at the church where we socialized. We created picnics. We even did a Mother's Day tribute and cooking and all of that for the mothers on Mother's Day. Those projects became a matter of unity between the gentlemen in this group. And we began to bond together in unexpected ways, because in the middle of these activities, playing ball, working in the field, what grew was some very personal conversations that grew to technically some very vulnerable conversations in the process as well. And those conversations opened the door to us being connected to each other in a way that was far beyond just, hey, we're here together, we're in each other's presence, and we're talking about some things. And we began to depend and trust each other in a way that was unexpected. In looking back at that time, I think not only did we grow individually and collectively as men, but I think we also grew as spouses and fathers as well. There were some things that were unspoken, that had not been shared in the homes with our loved ones, that we learned in talking to each other how to take back to the table and share with each other. One of the young men in the group, his motto for us was the text from Proverbs about iron sharpening iron. That is a very well-known proverb, and it is it guides the concept of men together make men stronger. I think, as we've discussed in conversations in the past, we often miss the point of the importance of having time as men to really spend time together. And I think it's more than just having somebody to lean on and having somebody to hang out with. I think in true connecting of personalities and building friendships, we also build a community of people who, as would be expected, we become accountable to. And accountable not just in the way of, hey, remind me to take care of, but sometimes you have to have somebody come alongside you who says, I need to address this with you. I'm as your partner, as your friend. I'm standing outside here and I'm watching some things going on with you, and I want to provide you with my counsel in this area. I want to say to you, I need you to, be a little stronger, be a little firmer, be a little softer. There's something as someone who is beginning to know you personally. I want to help protect your future. And there's some things I want to share with you to help you make that space work. When we built that community of people together, yeah, I think sometimes as men, we might shy away from these relationships because there's just one, it might feel like there's just one more person who's going to have something to say about what you are or are not doing. We spend our days with people dictating to us where we ought to be and what our things ought to look like. And your boy ought to just be your boy. To just stand here with me. I don't need all that from you. But when you have someone who really is committed to connecting with you, you have to be prepared for the fact that sometimes they're going to say to you, I think you handled that incorrectly. I think you missed an opportunity. As fathers, it's easy to be preoccupied. It's easy to say, the kids, they're the wife's responsibility, and until they get old enough for me to relate to them, they need to be over there. And we miss opportunities to be emotionally connected, or we fail to have the understanding of where to start. There is nothing more valuable as a new father than to have some veteran fathers walk up beside you and say, you can do this. You are the star and the light in your child's eyes, and they are excited to have you as their father. Children are more forgiving of you than we often are of ourselves. And if you put into the effort and the time, the reward of getting to know the individual people that are your children is worthwhile and is unmatched. And it takes some time. I think the importance of men standing with men. Don't misunderstand me. I think having our normal loved ones in our lives and having the women in our lives share with us the importance of taking care of things. But there is an emotional part of us. There is a physical and mental part of us that is specific to the male brain. And when you have somebody who comes and says, hey, look at it like this, shift it like that. I use a weird example all the time. When I first started my hand at trying to bake things, I was always frustrated with hearing people say, in bread making or dough making, knead it until it's smooth. Okay, how long is that? What do you do with that? What does that kneading process look like? What if mine doesn't get to look like that? I mean, do I keep going until it looks like that? What's the kneading process? And there was a gentleman that I watched online, and I was making my first set of, I think I was making some rolls. And he said, when you touch it, it should do this. When you feel it, it should feel like this. You want to do it for this much time and this long. you want to use this much flour and don't use this much flour because this will cause that. It was a really, detailed, logical, explanation, but it was so classically male in its style that it made absolute sense to me. I also found out in that process that even if it doesn't look as smooth as what sometimes I see in other videos, that if you have these kind of responses to your dough, you're going to get the same result. And it took hearing that from somebody who, said, hey, I'm walking through this process alone. I'm learning through this process also. And it opened the door for me into taking a chance to do something, which turned out to be a really beautiful product. As a matter of fact, I changed some of the ingredients in the process and came up with a very comparable product to the one that he had presented in that video. And I was proud of that process. And he became one of my favorite people to watch because I learned listening to him in that process. We don't always have, sometimes in our community, a history of men that we look back on and say, these men were impacting me in my life outside of, the coach or, the one or two male teachers you might have had. And so building that relationship style can be a little uncomfortable, a little unfamiliar, but the connectedness that comes in that relationship. And in the video that I mentioned earlier, Black men speaking on Black love and friendships, one of the gentlemen mentioned, the ability to say, I love you to a male friend without following up with bro. I love you, bro. Which kind of, tempers down the vulnerability of the I love you, because I don't want you to misunderstand, or I don't want you to feel weird, or I don't want to feel weird about it. Just, I love who you are as a person. I love the fact that we are connected to each other. That there is a sensitivity and vulnerability in this sharing point. We have really lost the ability to feel vulnerable to one another. And I think that in building a community of men with whom you can connect, you build the strength of each person individually through the collective bonding of this group of people. Iron sharpens iron means there's some rubbing against the process. There's some friction in this process. We're not waving in the air, just in the space together. We're clanging against each other. We're becoming sharp because of the edges cutting across each other, which means that a true brother will sometimes push back on the things you're doing in your life and the choices that you're making. Oh, this is a great question from Homemade. Good to see you. Have any of these experiences impacted how you relate as a son to your father or to your sons? Ooh. The father-son relationship, especially in the Black community, can be fraught with, all kinds of, I don't know, it's a really delicate, vulnerable place sometimes. It can be really, really strong or really absent. My father, I believe, worked really hard to connect with us how he knew how. He he has always been intentional about exposing us to the world, exposing us to engagement in life and what is happening in the world. And those educational opportunities created avenues of connection with him. I I will be honest and say that I'm not sure I always felt, not that I wasn't able, maybe that I created doubts about the things I could share or not share, or the information that I can be involved in, or the kind of conversations I could have. I wanted information and freedom to learn, and I think that I over time put limitations on that connection. It is one of the things that I'm still working through in my relationship with him, and that's funny because I love him. I'm crazy about the guy. But I learned to put limitations through things I understood or didn't understand in his engagement with the world, and watching the success and failures of some of his relationships with men that he felt he had built a level of confidence with in. And I think that at times I drew back away from some of those depth of relationships because I didn't want to see myself hurt the way I felt he was hurt. In terms of my sons, I am attempting to expand that contact. My two sons are two completely independent-minded gentlemen and two totally different kinds of thinkers in the way that they approach the world. And taking those personalities into effect and having open and honest and direct conversations with them, both that include my likes and dislikes. It may mean that at times when I'm expressing some things that I disapprove of or dislike or disagree with, that I have to step back and say, how do I say this in a way that does not shut down the opportunity for them to engage with me in this conversation? And that is every conversation, every interaction. How am I responding to them right now? Am I drawing them in? Am I blowing them off? And how is my interaction with them building them up? When you got 20-year-olds, they are experiencing the world in a way that sometimes we tend to forget. And I regularly say to myself, if this were any young man, not my son, if this were any young man sitting next to me and I was simply having a conversation with them, would I browbeat them or would I draw them into a open and honest and free conversation? And then how do I take that same conversation style and have it with these young men who I desire to see be successful in life? It requires a measure of honesty about who I am and what I'm dealing with and what is important to me. And that can be tough because, as an example for them, what are they observing here? What are they experiencing? How do they view this information that I'm giving them? Will they have doubt in me? Will they be ashamed? Will they be embarrassed in the information I'm telling them? And I have to decide that regardless, I'm going to engage them in a way that is hopefully going to help them feel more confident as they strive out into the world. Iron sharpening iron makes for a better product in the midst of pain and suffering. When you build a sword, when sword makers make sword, they take raw metal and they melt it. They put it in the fire and they melt it. And after it's been melted, and they take it out and they cool it. And after it's cooled, they pound it with a metal sledgehammer. And they pound it and they pound it. And in that pounding, they are thinning it out. They are sharpening it. They are shaping it. And they are making it into a razor sharp weapon that when in the hands of the right handler, is a physical thing of beauty and something that is used to guard against danger and protect the ones who stand behind the sword wielder. When we have a community as men in which we can pound the metal against each other, we can have arguments about our opinions about things, when we can debate and discuss, how to grow and how to learn. When we have someone who says, I believe in you, I trust you. When we both share out our need, as well as receive in counsel, and when we share out counsel to others, we are building a lockstep level of community that allows us to sharpen our senses about the world around us. I said to Dee recently, I was like, I need to find either a class to take, or I need to find a project to get in, or because being away from the academic world, when you are just doing rote physical things every day, you lose a measure of connection to experiencing new things. It's time to begin new projects and hobbies that force me into trying new things, and it's doing research. And when you're in a community of people who are different from you, who don't live in your house, who don't help you pay your bills, you have someone who says, I'm pushing back, and you have to either push back and defend what you're saying, or be able to say, I never thought about that. I never, considered that as a thing. It makes you more in tune and intuitive about the world around you. And that in turn becomes a benefit to the people who live in the house with you. It becomes a benefit to the people with whom you work every day, projects that you are responsible for as leaders, and as a subordinate in some cases. When there is not an opportunity to engage the world broader than just the rote habits of the day, we dull our edge. We dull our senses, and dulled senses, I believe, lead to dulled judgment issues. The inability to, maybe I should say the inability, the higher rate of chance that you will make mistakes in your life that you could have avoided if there were enough people behind you keeping your focus sharp. That doesn't mean that you can't make good decisions by yourself. It does not mean that you can't be a productive citizen in your own thinking in mind. But I really am coming to accept the fact that with collaboration and with community, and the connection and the friction that comes with that, there is a measure of growth that is unmatched. I think a part of that is male. I think the competitive um, spirit that makes us warriors, that makes us uh, ball players, that makes us tussling and wrestling little boys, is based in that competitiveness. I watched my youngest son in his early years of elementary school. If somebody got better grades than he did or got more credit than he did, and he was doing twice as much. Same thing with our oldest son, our middle child. When we brought him home for homeschool, we had the kids home for homeschool for a while. I think he lost a little bit sometimes that competitive nature which made him who he is. And as boys, there were times when I had to find things for them to engage in the community, because that competitiveness kept them finding new ways to learn, new ways to approach the world, new ways to attack their future and their learning. And yeah, absolutely. In those movies, 300 and Braveheart, those men went to war, and the people that they were in war with, they had respect for. And the stronger they fought, the more respect they had for each other. You need to understand, when it comes to boys, that most of our closest friends were somebody we fought or were an enemy some time ago. That banging heads, that fighting over a toy or fighting over a girl, or competing over a spot at the whatever. There's a measure of respect that comes with that grinding, that testing. So in this concept, in this conversation of iron sharpening iron, I will continue to say that we need a space where we can, as men, say to each other, I need help. I need support. And have people who put their arms around you, but also some people that occasionally need you to slap you across the head and say, I need you to man up. I need you to tighten up. And in that fact, I say again that I think that we are stronger together. It can be safe. It can be comfortable. It can be familiar to say, I keep these here, and then we deal with that, and then we keep this here, and I deal with that. A gentleman, and I'll add this video later, I didn't think about it. He talked about men, black men don't have friends in the workplace. And Dee and I discussed that. She asked me how I felt about that. And I said, when it comes to the general concept of, you don't have friends at work, I understand the general concept. Everybody, you get too personal at work, you're there for your job. But most of us spend the majority of our daytime at the workplace. We spend time across from people who we see more than we see our families. It is difficult to say that these people aren't important to us, that these people aren't connected to us in some way. When you're standing across from people who you share a work process with, and you fight the boss with, or you compete at getting a new job with, these people become an integral part of your work format. You want to be careful how you engage the world in that work format, but it's difficult to say, I don't feel connected to this person, or I don't feel attracted to that person, or I dislike that person. There are some people who, they live on the periphery, and I don't know anybody at work, and they have a whole community that they can rotate to. Most people aren't able to make that level of connection and transition. And as men, if we don't make that connection in a broader sense of the world, then we fall back into, well, then, the only people I got is my friends at work. And we think we have friends. And friendliness at work is not friendship. Okay. Those are strong acquaintances. I don't care how much y'all go out to the, drink at the club and whatever. We're talking about people who invest in you, who invest in your time. Can you build strong friendships out of some friendships at the job place? Absolutely. But is your community your job? If you are substituting a community, your job as a community, then I think you are limiting yourself on the broader scope of meeting the world. Hey, Frank, and hey, Charlotte Rattler. Hey, Jay, good to see you. And so I would encourage that you build a relationship with men in a community in which someone says to you occasionally, again, I'm with you, I stand with you, and also, bruh, tighten up, man up. And hopefully in that process, we build a strength together that helps us stand stronger, and then in turn be more of a benefit to the families in our homes, be more of a benefit to the places where we work, and in our individual selves, create a return to the warrior spirit of attacking the world and seeing the world. I'm sharing with you from a personal place because I recognize in my life that loss of connection, and sometimes I find it difficult to build because you see people in passing. There's all kind of reasons to say, I tried and they didn't reach out, so I kept moving. Or, I began to get closer to this person and I found some things about them that disturbed me. And so I kind of kept it, I kept it basic. That can go on forever. I think there's a need to build a community that, if broad enough, there's an engagement that becomes personal and intimate. And we learn to protect each other. We learn to be accountable to each other in the broader sense, to our habits and our challenges and our lifestyles, that put some of those questionable things up for review, and hopefully it pushes them out of the way. Because there are people around you who say, I'm gonna need you to let that go. We want you to be a part of this, and we want to build around you in a positive way. And I think that's going to harm you. And recognize that discomfort that you are experiencing in that discourse is meant to build you up and not tear you down. I think men fall into two places on the conflict meter. They either are battlers, they want to fight about everything. I got some guys I know, and they debate everything, they challenge everything. And then you got those of us who, dude, I don't have the energy, I don't have the space. And so we avoid it. And we definitely avoid these group of guys. Oh man, everything is a something. Everything is a, I don't want to argue. I just want to watch the game, man. Can we just watch the game? And I voted. I don't want to, be in a whole debate about who we voted and why we voted it. But in avoiding that conflict, are you avoiding the opportunity to challenge your thoughts and challenge your opportunities? And I think men together, men iron sharpening iron together, that friction, that connection is one that is beneficial to our growth and our betterment. Anyway, that's my thoughts for today. Just a few things I want to share. Again, glad thankful for all those who stopped by, chatted with me today. Want to definitely say, if you come into the comments, give me your thoughts. How do you feel about building communities of men who not only just hang out, but are really there to support each other and growing together? How do you make that happen? Give me some understanding of what would make those opportunities available to the broader scope of us as men. I am Herman. This is H&D Abroad. Thank you for stopping by, and we'll see you again soon.